Alright guys, so today I'm going to be showing you how to use this weld tool that I've been making, or this weld plugin, because it's a bit difficult. I guess it has a bit of a learner's curve in that welds are kind of by nature just difficult to begin with. So what we're going to be doing for this video is we're going to be making joints for this horses. I shouldn't have said weld editor, I should have said joint editor. Because it does do all types of joints, but I figure most people will be using this for just general purpose welds, so that's why I said that. Anyway, so we're going to be doing this horse. So right now it's just these parts. There's nothing in it. They're not even anchored. If I press play, it'll just fall apart. There's also a little tail on the back there if you didn't see that. Alright, so what we're going to do is we are going to start by actually creating a weld. Now we can't, to my knowledge anyway, I don't believe we can, use the basic objects. Yeah, it's not in there. I can't type. Well, yeah, it's not in there. So we have to use instance, and there I've already got it filled out. So instance.new weld common game.workspace. And there we go, we've got our weld, so we can copy that and we can paste it into the torso. So now, because let's decide what we're going to do first. So let's say we want a joint here between this torso part, which is this, and then this, which is the head. So between these two, we'll call that joint the neck. So we'll title that neck. And you can name it whatever you want, but you're just trying to also name these joints based on what's going to be easiest for you to look at them and say, oh, it's that one. So first thing we want to do is we want to have the neck selected and then the torso selected, because the neck doesn't have, if we look at the properties, the neck doesn't have the part 0 and the part 1 filled out, which are very important for welds. So we're going to select the neck, we're going to select the torso, and then we're going to have part 0 selected, because that's the base part, like the part that the actual joint takes place from. So we've got part 0, and we're going to click S. So part 0 is now set to torso. We haven't done part 1 yet, so we're going to go to neck, we're going to select head, then we're going to switch to part 1, and then we're going to press S. Alright, and so now we have C0 and C1, and we have part 1 and part 0. Now C0 and C1, C1 hasn't actually changed from what the base kind of default C1 is, but C0 is set automatically to get wherever, like the offset that was needed to get where this part is, so that it doesn't just set it straight in the center of the torso. So it kind of automatically does the calculation so that C0 is proper for part 1 to be in the position that it was when you selected it. So we're going to select neck, and actually the first thing we're going to do is, just because it makes it a bit easier, is well, I may have just made that entire, yep. Right, we got to do that entirely over. That's fantastic. So C0, or oops, C1, or part 1, neck, select head, part 1, there we go. Okay, so sorry about that. To make this a bit easier, I'm going to make this transparent so that we can see through it, because we're going to have an actual part, I call it a pin, that helps us see where the actual joint is. So we're going to select neck, and we're going to start with C0. And I'm going to suggest for this, because it's so large, we're going to change the step to 1 stud, and then I'm going to press C, and this little green thing is our joint. So we want to place that about where our neck is actually going to move and rotate around. This is a relative space, and you'll understand what I mean by that in a sec. So that looks about good, where you might have a neck, like joint, where the actual rotation takes place. So I'm going to press C, and we're done with that. Then I'm going to go to C1, I'm going to press C again, and then I'm going to actually move the head, the actual physical part, so that it's relative to this joint, so that's in the position that I initially had it. Alright, and then I'm going to press C, I'm going to press save, because that now saves the C1 and the C0 and the part 1 and the part 0 all as defaults, and I'll show you what I can do with that. So let's make the head no longer transparent. as we already set the joint, we already know where it is. So let's go to C1, let's click C, we'll change to rotate, we'll do 45, and it rotates around that point. Now, if I actually turn off, or turn the transparency to 0.4 again, you'll be able to see the green part that it rotates around. So let's actually go to 10. So it's rotating around that green part. Alright, and as I said, because I set that initial thing, so say I totally screw it up, I can't get it back. It's probably more likely that you'll be using the 0 step for that, because the 0 step is like free move. So like, no, I'm never going to get it back to straight where I wanted it. Just hit reset because I hit the save button at that spot that I wanted it to be, and it just automatically goes back. Alright, so then we would continue this process, and I'll probably do it for one leg in the tail just because it takes, setting these up takes a few seconds, and I think once you get the idea, it's not going to be too difficult. So let's do this, which is the back left leg. So we'll title this back L leg. So we select our weld. The tool, we bring that out. Torso, because that's the main part that everything's connected to. We set that as part 0. Leg, oops, let's change the name here. Leg. And then we go to part back left. Switch to part 1. Hit set. Alright, remember it automatically calculated our C0 for us. Because it's easier to actually see the joint, we're going to make it transparent. Alright, so we're going to go back leg, say C1, I'm going to move it to about here. Alright, set the C1. Alright, save, and then I'll just show you some rotation again here while we're at it. It's rotating around that point. Rotates around that point. Turny turn. You can reset that, obviously. Alright, and then we'll do the tail. So where's our back leg, just because we don't want it transparent anymore. Alright, so we copy a weld or something, some type of joint. Tell you to list tail. Start with the torso. Set. And see what happens if I do this. Because it uses a selection service, setting the part 0 and the part 1 is a bit twitchy. So like if I switch to like undo that, it'll just set it back to part 0. So you have to have them selected, then you go to part 1 and do that. So there's tail. Alright, we got that set up. Let's make our tail a bit transparent. Alright, tail, set that. That's about where our tail would be. And let's go here. Okay, so I just want to show you, just for rotation's sake, I'm going to save the C1 and C0 and all that stuff, like save the current position, just because I want to show you how the rotation when you do C1 is relative to the C0 green joint, because that's what the green thing represents, the pin. That's what it represents. It represents the C0, and C1 is always relative to that. So if I go rotate, go C1, it's going to rotate around the center because that's where the green joint is, right? Like just like you're rotating it like you would with the rotate tool in Studio. Now, if I go to movement, and I set that like the tail like I wanted it to be, like that, and then once again I'm gonna hit save. Okay, we switch the mode. I'm gonna go to 0. I'll show you now. The rotation takes place around that, right? Just like tail, you would imagine probably would. All right, so that's that. I guess in terms of other features, if you're using this more from a scripting perspective, you can obviously, with the joint selected, you can press print C0, print C1, and that'll tell you the name of the joint and then the C0 and the C1. So if you want to set that for scripts or whatever, you can totally do that, or do whatever. Anyways, so I don't have too much else to actually show you. I guess I can show you what would happen if you know, how a basic idea of how welds kind of would work. So let's paste one into this, the front left. All right. So we're just going to weld it. We're not even going to really change much. So we're going to go weld. I won't even change the name just because this is really anything here. Or I guess actually, no, we're going to put this in the back left, because this already has a joint attached to it, like around where my mouse is. So we're going to say weld, part 1 there, weld, front left, part 1. Alright, and see what happens now when I do this. Because they're welded together, they move together. Alright, and I'll just reset that. Alright, so then you can obviously then get rid of that, and it'll no longer hold any ability over it. Right? Alright, so hopefully you now understand it. You can always use this, I guess, on, hold on, here, I'll just use this little zombie here. You can use this on any pre-made welds. You don't need to make the welds yourself, or joints. So like I can go and do the shoulders of like a humanoid character. So, oops, rotate C1. So I can, move the arm like this. You can still see the joint there if I want to. Right? Can do same thing for the right shoulder if I want to. Oops. Anyway, so you get the idea. You can edit the joints. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Generally, you don't. I will give one hint here. Generally, if we go to C0 here, shoot, I didn't want to click the print. Generally, you don't really want to rotate your C0. I'm gonna leave. I always, leave it in because I don't know what you're doing. But generally, C0s aren't meant to really be rotated. That's more something you always want to do on the C1. So the option's there, but I recommend that you keep C0 as simple as you can, just a bit more of a positionary value as opposed to a rotationary and positionary one. Alright, so that being said, that's everything. Thanks for watching, and hope you understand how to use it now. See ya.